Hello, and welcome to the Paranormal Operator Podcast, where we talk about all manner of things that go bump in the night. Here, we discuss sightings, investigations, news, and popular media surrounding the paranormal, supernatural, and occult phenomena. So settle in as we search for the truth. I am your host, Adam, Operator 23. In today's mini episode, we will be reviewing Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, Season 4, Episode 6. Many people found this episode to be a little lackluster, but we're going to give it a good shot, and I'm going to mount my best defense that I can, given that I am a Skinwalker Ranch insider and I have a bit more access to information than the average casual viewer. That being said, I'm not going to pull any punches, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly how I feel about the episode, as well as how some of the crew members also feel about the episode. So, this is your official spoiler warning. Spoilers ahead for Secret of Skinwalker Ranch in 3, 2, 1. In this week's episode, entitled What a Mesa, we have the show open up with its normal montage of different clips to kind of get you set and primed for this episode. The clips include drilling from last year, a picture of the pink rock, the purple light, and the UFO that was supposedly over the south field stalking Thomas when he was looking for the source of the purple light. Once we get through that, we start the show off with a review. You have Caleb, Eric, and Thomas talking about the purple light. One thing I did kind of notice in this scene, Eric looks a bit tired. I'm not sure what time this was filmed at, but he looks like he'd rather be in bed. And with the frantic schedule and activity going on the ranch, I can imagine that he probably was tired at that point. So, what about this purple light? Well, as you will note, if you've seen the episode, the light is blue. Well, Thomas firmly asserts that it was in fact purple. And, Travis, he puts in that, okay, well, cameras work differently than a person's eye. And the human eye doesn't actually respond all that well to purple. But more to the point that the cameras are just mechanical instruments and, electronic instruments. But if they're not calibrated correctly, then they're not going to show true color. So, that could have been the reason why it was showing up purple. He also comments that something that is purple that would have been shining that brightly would have been putting out a lot of energy. But exactly what it is, we're not entirely sure. We know for a fact it was not one of the mobile cameras. Some of you may notice that there are blinking blue lights occasionally in the background. So they have these mobile surveillance cameras. You've probably seen them in like Walmart parking lots. They have a blue strobe on them. So that wasn't this, because they know where they are. They know about those lights. This purple light was not that. It was brighter and it was in the wrong position. So you may also remember that upon seeing this, Travis jumps in a UTV and heads down there. Well, after talking about the purple light, Travis shows the footage he caught of the UAP, and he shows it to Thomas and Eric. and it's still visible. Like it's pretty visible, and Thomas doesn't seem to have seen it at all, which is kind of interesting. And from Travis's perspective, he says that it was only a few hundred feet above their heads, and it did seem to stalk Thomas, as though it was moving along with him, monitoring whatever it was that he was doing. Now, I'm going to say that, okay, at night, when things are in the air, even in the daytime, it's really hard to tell distance, and it's even harder to tell size, because there's nothing in the sky for perspective. But if Travis says, okay, this is probably only a few hundred feet off the ground, I'm inclined to believe him. I mean, he was the lead scientist for the UAP task force, so maybe. So after this review, the team goes outside, and they get to drilling. And it's the same guys who were there last year. And the hope is that this time they will be able to get around the obstacle that is there in the mesa. And one question that is brought up is whether or not the drill can go through steel reinforced concrete. Travis brings that up, and the drill operator replies that yes, it can, and they have drilled through steel reinforced concrete. Now, something that's brought up in the debrief, the insider debrief, is whether or not it was granite or quartzite that it can be drilled through. And Thomas does state that he's pretty sure the guy said that they had been able to drill through granite, but that it would be very odd that there would be granite out there in the first place, because it's the wrong type of geology. They got shell and sandstone, so it shouldn't be hitting any granite in the first place. So, what happens? Well, you probably know that they've cleared an area out for the drill, so it can be closer. And so, again, the hope is to drill over the anomaly that they hit last year. And just as a kind of a refresh, what happened was they hit this object, and it forced the drill bit down. So they were suspecting that whatever this object was more than likely metallic, and it was also possibly dome-shaped. And what came from it were these mysterious metal flakes of europium and tellurium, which were seemingly fabricated, so more than likely not natural. Now, in this season, they have found additional GPR anomalies in the mesa. The one that they are trying to go after, I believe, is the one that kind of looks like a mine shaft. And so they're going to go and try to drill above this object. And it does seem to work, or at least it's somewhat successful. The drill bit, it does hit something, and it does ride it. It gets pushed upward. And, well, eventually at about 270 or 280 feet into the mesa drilling, it finally hits an object that it can't penetrate. Now, while this happens, at the same time, Travis is picking up a amplified 33 megahertz signal. Now, 33 megahertz isn't that weird, because they have mentioned, oh, by the way, the drill, it puts out this 33 megahertz signal. That way they can track the drill bit. They know how deep it is, its position, what way the drill is facing, and all this information you would need in order to, make it go the direction you want. And it's constantly pinging. And, well, what appears to happen is once the drill bit hits this object, that it is taking the signal, it is amplifying it, and it is rebroadcasting it. Almost as though you were hooking it up to an antenna. But not just an antenna, you're also hooking it up to something that has more energy behind it. Because it's not only broadcasting, but it's amplifying the signal. And that is very odd. Which leads them to believe that whatever they're hitting is in fact metallic. Now, they come up with this really cool experiment, kind of there on the spot, and they have the drilling operator reverse the drill and advance the drill 3 times. And so every time it advances and it hits this object, the same effect occurs. So they did it 3 times. All 3 times, the same thing happened. Now, the drill bit, by the time they're done and they're going to be pulling it out, it has been sitting trying to drill into this object, whatever it is, for 30 minutes, and it's using 8,000 pounds of push. So it's got a lot of force behind it. And it's not going anywhere, so something has to give. Well, they pull the drill bit out, and the teeth are not worn down. The drill operator states that the drill bit is cool, which is very odd considering the amount of friction it should have been generating. They're grinding on this thing, and in the insider debrief, they bring that up again because like the temperature dropped down to almost nothing, and the operator at one point actually thought that the drill bit had just broken off because of the anomalous temperature readings. And this is weird because, friction's a thing. It should be creating friction, which should be creating heat. Now in the show, Travis kind of brings this up, and he says something along the lines of, whatever it's hitting is it's like a frictionless force field, right? Because something is drawing that thermal energy out. Well, I don't know. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, though, I'm still kind of skeptical. And I kind of looked into it a little bit. The drill head, the bit itself, will spin independently of the drill pipe. And David Paulides, who I've brought up several times before in his review of the episode, he said as much as well. And so I was kind of double checking, is this accurate? And apparently it is. The drill bit will rotate independently to keep it from being wore out against something it cannot penetrate. So is that the case here? I don't know. But supposedly the drill operator has decades of experience, so he would know better, and the guys surely would have mentioned if something was out of place. So make of that what you will. After the drilling, Thomas and Caleb, they go to the south field where they put out some trail cameras. Now, according to them, when Bigelow was there and Nids was there, they never went and did anything in the south field, and most of their intention was actually focused on Homestead. I want to say Homestead 2. But because of the Purple Line incident, now they're putting out some trail cams. And I think perhaps by the end, I think they do show something that they may have caught on one of the trail cams. So while they're out there installing these cameras, they come across a couple of things. First, a deer carcass, as well as a burnt post. Now the deer carcass, there's nothing really special about it, except that it's fairly intact. And they call a veterinarian out to come and take a look at it. And her conclusion was that this was a fawn, 6 months or younger, and it did not die of predation, but it was scavenged afterwards. Well, during the insider debrief, Caleb brings up the fact that they had a very intense winter, and there's any number of reasons why that fawn could have died, right, for whatever reason. And Travis, I think, probably all of them really were kind of puzzled as to why exactly they spent so much time talking about the deer when it was really it was a nothing burger. And the team themselves were like, why? Why the deer? So the other thing, the burnt post, what made it very odd is that the burn area was about 3 feet off the ground, and it was contained entirely to the post. None of the foliage around was burned, and there was no sign of fire in any of the trees or anywhere on the ground nearby. And like you saw them picking parts of it off. And the camera did take a fairly close-up image of it. And in the close-up image, some of this stuff looked like it had been picked off or had fallen off. And in fact, yes, it had been. Caleb, in the insider debrief, was like, oh, yeah, no, it was, because we took some off for samples. So they did that, and then they took the close-up shot. To me, at first glance, not being able to touch it or smell it, it didn't look very fresh to me. They said it was, and that upon touch, the charcoal, the charred bit, was very crumbly, very powdery, and it would, it felt like it was fresh. So, again, it's just something you're going to have to take their word on it. Travis comes over, and he kind of notices that the shape is somewhat circular. And it's really hard to tell how much of it is burnt off, but it looks like at least several inches. And the outline is roughly circular. And so he's like, man, it looks like an orb just came and like flew through it, like it nicked a corner of this post, and it just burned that that circular shape into it. So that's very interesting, which that kind of goes back to what Travis was saying about something purple that bright would be giving off a lot of energy. So maybe the two things are correlated. Maybe, we don't know. There's no evidence of that, but we can't rule it out. So Thomas even says, I understand ranchers, they find a limb that's half burnt and say, oh, yeah, this is pretty good for a fence post. Let's stick this in the ground. He's pretty certain that is not what happened. He's pretty certain that this thing was in the ground and then it was burned. He also is fairly certain that the burn is fresh. So that's about all I can tell you. Now, during the end credits type of preview, they do have a person come who is a fire expert, and he flat out says it's not arson, it's not a chemical burn, it's not a lightning strike. So what is it? Right? It's the Skinwalker. He just pretty much says it. So that'll be interesting to see next episode. So after the deer, after the burnt post, they go to close out the episode. You have Eric, Travis, Dragon, and Thomas. They are reviewing the geological analysis of the pink rock, as well as the boar mud. So the samples, the stuff that came out of the drilling. And unfortunately, the pink rock was not to a place where they could take samples, so all they had were photos. And it was the opinion of at least one of the people doing this analysis that the pink substance was not a solid material, but that it was some sort of a deposit on top of the rocks. And that the deposit was of selenium. And furthermore, that it was deposited by vapor. So, talking about high strangeness. Okay, selenium is a solid at room temperature. And it has a boiling point of 1,265 degrees. So hot, right? To make something a vapor, you have to heat it up to the boiling point. And then as it evaporates from boiling, it's got to come up, it's got to settle on these rocks, and then it has to cool. So what in the mesa could ignite itself to 1,265 degrees to boil selenium and then deposit on these rocks? Very strange. Very, very strange indeed. Now, Travis, he brings up a point about selenium. That selenium, when paired with zinc, you get zinc selenide. And that is used as a metamaterial with applications in camouflage and cloaking. So I Googled it. I looked up Google Scholar, and there are several papers on the optical uses of zinc selenide. So theoretically, it's possible. And if anyone would know, Travis would probably know. Pretty interesting, in fact. So, no clue as to how it got there. No clue what it's doing, how, whatever. Just, it's a mystery. And then lastly, the bore mud samples, they were analyzed, and they had a decent amount of metals, fairly conductive metals at that. And it wasn't really, really big quantities, really just trace elements. But Travis feels that these materials are probably things that were leached off of the object, whatever it is that's inside the mesa. So, whatever's there must have been there for a very, very long time. Now, having failed to figure out exactly what this object is, Eric suggests that they try to drill from the top this time and get some kind of small portable drill or auger that they can carry up to the top of the mesa and drill down towards this anomaly and try and get a better perspective on it. And that sounds like a perfectly good plan to me. I'm kind of curious actually why they didn't do that in the first place. That's where I would have started. But then again, I didn't really know what horizontal drilling was. Now, that being said, there was an interview I watched a couple weeks ago where they had commented on having this auger that drilled a 4-foot diameter hole. So, presumably, this is the same device. And I hope this makes it into the episode. But something that was kind of cool about this fiasco, we'll call it, is that they were drilling with this thing, and then somehow the drill bit, came off. And so now this thing's like 20 feet in the ground, and they were spending like 3 hours trying to get the stupid thing to go back on. And they can't do it, so the next day they come out to dig the drill bit out of the ground. And when they get down there, the drill bit is gone. It vanished, gone. And they're all pulling their hair out like, what in the world happened? We were here all day using that stupid thing. Surely we put it on the end of this drill. It wouldn't have worked without it, And some time passes, and they have to return this thing. Well, they rented it. Okay, a lot of the stuff they don't own, they're renting it. So some time passes. It's time to return the thing, and they go open the case, and the freaking bit is in the case. And to this, as far as I understand, they have no idea how it got out of the ground. They have no idea how it got back in the case. I really hope that makes it into the episode, because to me, that is just so interesting. And it's reminiscent of previous stories from the ranch where one of the ranchers misplaced his post hole diggers, only to go out, buy a new set, and return to find the old set like 20 feet up in a tree. Or you could also, I guess, make a correlation with the fact that the wife would go into town, get groceries, come back, put them away, only to come back later and then find them repackaged in the bags sitting on the counter. So, very, very high strangeness, if you will. So, again, this episode, it's kind of lackluster, but it's still interesting. I'm not going to say that it's a bad episode. What I will say is that Season 4 hasn't been very suspenseful on an entertainment sort of aspect. That being said, though, I just have to remind myself, and I have to remind you guys, obviously, that this is not a TV show. This is a docu-series about a scientific investigation. None of this stuff is scripted. The team, the crew, they have no say on what does or does not make it onto television. And Prometheus, they feel they have to make it entertaining, and if there's not stuff that's visually entertaining or visually captivating, then they're just going to have to go to the next best thing. I wish they would just stick to the science. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that feel that way. But there's probably, twice as many people that just want to be entertained. Me, I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know. I don't care if it's entertaining. If it's boring, I'll still watch it. Panthera Britannia was kind of boring, but it was interesting. And I'm probably going to drop that I'm probably going to drop that review tomorrow morning. It's not going to be very long. But at any rate, guys, if you want the full story, if you want all the extra tidbits, I encourage you, go and sign up for Skinwalker Ranch Insider. You get a really cool t-shirt that you can't buy. You get a membership card, and you get all these cool perks. You get to watch their live Q&As. You get live access to their cameras. You get a discount in the store. And it's just, and all the money goes into the ranch. It's not going into, Prometheus or the History Channel or Brandon Fugel's pocket. It's going to fund the ranch. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to a good cause. So, about the mesa, there have been people who are complaining that, well, why don't they just blow it up? Or, why don't they do some really big mining operation? Well, they've said this time and time again, that they're not going to deface the mesa. They do not want to significantly impact the natural environment, because the mesa itself is unstable. In this past Insider Debrief, Brandon Fugel was there for a little while, and he commented that there used to be additional pioneer structures and homesteads that are no longer there simply because the mesa has collapsed and destroyed them. So to do some kind of major drilling effort would be very hazardous, and it would destroy the natural beauty of the place, and he simply doesn't want to do that. And to the point of blowing up the mesa, well, if you blow the mesa up, there's a chance that whatever's in the mesa is also gonna get blown up. So yeah, they're not gonna do that either. So folks, that's what I have for this episode here. I'm gonna continue watching. I'm gonna continue doing these reviews. Next episode is gonna be the mid-season, and so more than likely I'm gonna be doing a review for that episode, as well as a mid-season recap. And yeah, also don't forget to look forward to Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, which is another show they've been very tight-lipped about. We don't know any details about it other than it's going to be a different crew of people working quite possibly in tandem or parallel to the current crew that is there. So it'll be interesting to say the least. And I'll probably be doing some reviews for that TV show as well. I do want to let everybody know, however, that about the end of June and middle of July, that I won't be doing much, simply because my job requires me to be away from my computer and in areas where there is limited technology. So in about a month or so, you're not going to be hearing from me very much. And it's not because I've quit or given up. It's simply because work. So, folks, that's all I have for this episode. If you like what you heard, please like, share, subscribe, comment. All that kind of stuff helps the algorithm. If you did not like what I have said, you can leave a comment. And I do appreciate any comments you have. If it's positive or negative, go ahead, put it down there. That is fine. Anything helps out the algorithm. You can find us on Twitter at ParanormalOps23 and on Instagram and Rumble at ParanormalOperator23. Our email, if you have any sightings, experiences, comments, concerns, questions, and you just want to reach out to us, the email is paranormaloperator23@gmail.com. Until next time, folks, keep searching in the darkness.